Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're strapping in and going full throttle into the world of Formula One.
Absolutely. We're talking about the absolute pinnacle of motorsport.
Exactly. And this isn't just about the speed, is it? It's this incredible mix of technology, high-stakes finance, and, a strategic chess match played at, 200 miles an hour?
It really is. It blends that engineering brilliance with just unbelievable human endurance. So I think our goal today is to go beyond just the spectacle you see on track.
Right.
We want to give you the blueprint, really, the hidden rules, the staggering amounts of money, and the physical cost that makes F1 what it is.
Absolutely. Our mission is to unpack the FIA Formula One World Championship. And that name, Formula One, it sounds technical, but it just means it's the highest class of open-wheel, single-seater racing.
And sanctioned by the FIA, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile.
That's the one. So we're going to get into the money, the crazy physical demands on the drivers, and, where this whole global championship is heading now.
And to set the stage, you have to remember the history. I mean, the inaugural World Championship season, that was all the way back in 1950.
Wow, that long ago.
Yeah. And since then, it's grown to award two main titles every year. You have the Drivers' World Championship, which is the famous one, and then the Constructors' World Championship.
And that second one, that's for the teams, for the manufacturer.
Exactly. And that came in around 1958 to recognize the team's effort.
And the scale of it is just immense. These races, the Grand Prix, they're everywhere. Multiple continents.
Oh, completely. From the deserts in Bahrain to the streets of Monaco to, classic high-speed tracks like Silverstone and Monza in Italy.
It's a huge logistical challenge, which I guess is why that three-day race weekend structure is so intense and so important.
It dictates everything.
Okay, let's unpack that core idea then. The formula. It sounds a bit abstract, but in F1, it's basically the rule book for innovation, right? What does it actually mean?
Well, the word formula is actually pretty straightforward. It just refers to the mandatory, very specific set of technical and sporting rules that every single car has to follow. No exceptions.
It covers everything.
Everything. From the size of the engine cylinders and the car's minimum weight, right down to the safety specs of the chassis.
And working inside those rules, you end up with these terrifyingly fast cars. I mean, the current F1 cars are the fastest regulated road course cars in the world.
They are. And their speed, it's not just about raw engine power. It's mostly about aerodynamics, generating just immense downforce.
Right, downforce, the invisible force.
Exactly. They use these massive front and rear wings, plus all this complex shaping on the car's floor to create a low-pressure zone under the car.
Not over it.
No, under it. It's the opposite of a plane's wing. It essentially sucks the car onto the tarmac, which lets them take corners at speeds that just shouldn't be possible.
And that constant search for speed has led to some huge shifts in car design. Let's talk about the first really big one, the mid-engine revolution.
Okay, so before the 1960s, you still had front-engine cars trying to compete. The engine was in front of the driver, which was, the conventional car layout.
But it had limits.
Big limits. And the Australian driver, Jack Brabham, was the one who really proved that placing the engine behind the driver in the middle of the car was superior.
Why was that layout so much better? What did it change?
It's all about weight distribution and handling. By moving that heavy engine to the back, you put more weight over the drive wheels.
So better traction.
Dramatically better traction and balance, especially when you're accelerating out of a corner. Brabham won championships in 59, 60, and 66 with that layout. And by 1961, every single competitive team had switched.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that became the fundamental standard. It still defines F1 cars today.
So that's a huge structural shift. And then just a year later, the next big change happened, moving from how the car was balanced to how it was actually built.
Correct. The next massive step was in 1962, and this was pioneered by Lotus. They introduced the aluminum sheet monocoque chassis.
Instead of the old tube frames.
Right, instead of the traditional space frame design. It was a huge technological breakthrough because the body shell itself could now carry the structural load.
So it was lighter, stiffer, and stronger all at once. That rigidity must have been critical when they started playing with aerodynamics.
Oh, it was essential for stability, which leads us right into the wings. Teams were slowly realizing they could manage airflow, and then things just escalated so fast around 1968.
That's when the airfoils, the wings, appeared?
Yep. At the 1968 Monaco Grand Prix, the Lotus owner Colin Chapman just bolted these modest front wings and a rear spoiler onto his car. And the effect was immediate. It added a whole new dimension to cornering speed that pure engine power could never touch.
And that search for downforce hit its most extreme point in the late 1970s with ground effect. I've heard this term, but its impact sounds almost scary.
It was. Ground effect is, in principle, simple. You use the shape of the car's floor to speed up the air passing underneath it, which creates a vacuum that just slams the car onto the track.
And the 70s version was even more extreme.
The version championed by Lotus used these sliding skirts on the sides of the car to completely seal the gap to the track surface. It created this incredibly powerful low-pressure zone.
How much force are we actually talking about here?
We're talking about enormous downforce. The aerodynamic forces were up to 5 times the car's weight.
5 times. So a car that weighed, say, 800 kilograms.
Could theoretically have 4,000 kilograms of downward pressure holding it down.
That's insane. Incredible for speed, but what did that mean for the car and the driver, physically?
It meant rigidity. The suspension had to be virtually solid to keep the car at the perfect height for the skirts to work. So drivers felt every single bump. The tires were their only cushion.
Sounds brutal.
It was. And if a skirt broke or the car hit a bump, you'd have a sudden, massive loss of downforce, which often led to a catastrophic crash. It was just too dangerous, and so they banned that type of ground effect in 1983.
It's that classic F1 cycle, isn't it? Innovation pushes things to a dangerous limit, and then safety regulations have to pull it back.
Absolutely. Now, let's pivot a bit from the tech to the money, because the growth of F1 as this billion-dollar sport is an equally fascinating story, and it's a story really dominated by one man.
You have to mean Bernie Ecclestone. He's the one who turned F1 from just a bunch of racing teams into this massive unified commercial empire.
That's him. He bought the Brabham team in '71, but the key move was when he became president of FOCA, the Formula One Constructors Association, in 1978.
And what was FOCA?
This was the team's union, basically. And before Ecclestone, circuit owners would negotiate TV rights and things with each team individually. Ecclestone convinced all the teams to hunt as a pack under FOCA.
Ah, so that was the genius move, recognizing the whole series was the product, not just one race.
Precisely. He packaged F1 as this single irresistible product. He'd offer it to circuits, but the catch was they had to give up all the lucrative trackside advertising and the media broadcast rights to him. He centralized all the commercial value.
And that's what gave F1 its global financial power. But I imagine that didn't happen without a fight.
No, it led to the famous FISA-FOCA war in the late 70s and early 80s. It was a battle over TV money and regulations. But it ended with the 1981 Concord Agreement, which set the standard for how revenue was shared and created stability. That structure, more or less, still underpins the sport's finances today.
So for all its international travel, where is the actual engineering hub of this sport?
Funnily enough, the United Kingdom is the undisputed hub. It's often called Motorsport Valley, right around Oxfordshire.
6 of the 10 current teams are based there.
6 out of 10. They all benefit from the proximity to aerospace experts, a huge pool of engineers, and world-class manufacturing.
That concentration is just staggering.
It really is. And it makes the big exception, Ferrari, stand out even more. They're the only team to have everything chassis, engine-based, entirely outside the UK. They're in Maranello, Italy, a huge source of national pride.
So you have this intense engineering pressure cooker in Motorsport Valley working all year to build these cars to the rules, and that creates the need for that incredibly regimented 3-day schedule they follow all over the world.
That's a perfect transition, because all that work in the factory has to pay off every single weekend. And a modern Grand Prix weekend is this highly structured 3-day process.
So give us the basic overview.
A standard weekend kicks off on Friday with 2 free practice sessions, usually an hour each. These are for setup, testing new parts, seeing how the tires wear.
And then Saturday?
Saturday morning has a final practice session, and then that leads into the big one, qualifying. And then, of course, the Grand Prix race itself on Sunday.
And on Fridays, you sometimes see different drivers in the cars. What's that about?
Yeah, teams can use additional drivers, like a reserve or third driver in Friday practice. It's to get them experience, or to get feedback on new upgrades without using up one of the main driver's time.
But a main driver has to sit out for that to happen.
That's right. Only 2 cars per team can be on track at once.
Okay, so the real pressure starts on Saturday with qualifying. Since 2006, they've used this knockout format.
It's incredibly intense because one mistake, one bit of traffic, and your whole weekend can be ruined. With 20 cars, it's split into 3 phases to just keep ratcheting up the pressure.
Let's start with Q1, the first session.
Q1 is 18 minutes long. Its main job is to eliminate the 5 slowest drivers, so they'll start in positions 16 to 20. But the most important rule here is the 107% rule.
Right, explain that.
Any driver whose best lap is slower than 107% of the fastest time in Q1 isn't technically allowed to start the race. They can get permission from the stewards, but it's basically a minimum competency rule to make sure no one is dangerously slow.
Okay, then the field gets narrowed down in Q2.
Right. The 15 remaining drivers get 15 minutes to set one of the 10 fastest times. So positions 11 through 15 are decided here. And the strategy gets tense because drivers want to use the hardest tire they can get away with to save the fast, soft tires for the end.
And that brings us to Q3, the final 12 minutes that sets the top 10.
Q3 is just about pure speed. It's 12 minutes long. Drivers usually go out for 1, maybe 2 all-or-nothing laps. The key strategic part used to be about the tires.
Right. They used to have to start the race on their Q2 tires, didn't they?
They did, but that's changed. Now, everyone gets a free choice of tire to start the race on Sunday. But the top 10 drivers still have to use up an extra set of soft tires just to get through Q3. So sometimes the driver in 11th actually has a slight strategic advantage with an extra fresh set of fast tires for the race.
As if that wasn't complicated enough, a few years ago they introduced sprints.
Ah, the sprints. Yes, starting in 2021. Initially, the sprint race actually set the grid for the main Grand Prix on Sunday.
That was confusing.
It was. And drivers would often play it safe in the sprint.
Yeah.
So since 2023, the sprint races are completely independent. They have their own qualifying called the sprint shootout, and the results of the sprint don't affect the main race grid at all.
I see. That makes a lot more sense. And the sprint shootout has its own special tire rules, too.
It does. It's a shorter qualifying, and they make it mandatory to use medium tires for the first 2 parts, SQ1 and SQ2.
Yeah.
And then you can only use soft tires for the final part, SQ3. It just forces teams to think on their feet.
So let's get to race day. You have the formation lap, which is for warming up the tires, and then the 5 red lights go out, and it's chaos.
That formation lap is so critical. The tires only work in a very narrow temperature window, so you see the drivers weaving aggressively to build heat. But once the race starts, the strategy immediately switches to the mandatory tire rule.
Which means everyone has to make a pit stop.
Pretty much, yeah. In a dry race, drivers have to use at least 2 different types of dry tires, the hard, medium, or soft compounds. So a pit stop is basically required.
And the pit stop itself changed completely when they banned mid-race refueling. When was that?
That was back in the 2010 season. And that ban just fundamentally shifted the whole challenge. Now it's all about the pure mechanical precision and human teamwork of changing 4 tires in under 2 seconds.
With a sport moving this fast, safety is obviously huge. Let's talk about how they control the chaos, starting with the safety car.
The safety car, or SC, comes out when there's an incident that's dangerous for the drivers or the track marshals. Its whole purpose is to slow the race down. Everyone has to follow it in order, no overtaking.
And when that safety car comes out, it can completely change the outcome of a race. Why is pitting under the SC such a massive advantage?
It's just simple math. At full race speed, a normal pit stop costs you about, say, 20 to 25 seconds compared to the cars that stay on track. But when the safety car is out, the whole field is moving slowly.
Ah, so the time you lose in the pit lane is much, much less.
Exactly. You get a cheap pit stop. You can get fresh tires while losing very little time to your rivals. It can literally win you the race.
And we should mention the cars themselves are supplied by Mercedes-AMG and Aston Martin, and they've been driven by Bernd Maylander since the year 2000. Incredible consistency.
And the other key safety tool, which came out of a tragic accident, is the virtual safety car.
The VSC. This was after Jules Bianchi's crash in 2014.
Precisely. The FIA realized they needed something for incidents that weren't serious enough for a full safety car, but where normal yellow flags weren't enough to protect the marshals.
So how does the VSC work? What do the drivers have to do?
They have to maintain a positive delta. Basically, they see a minimum reference time on their steering wheel display, and they have to keep their lap time above that minimum pace.
So they have to slow down everywhere on the track, not just in one spot.
Exactly. It neutralizes the whole field without bunching everyone up behind a physical car. It keeps the gaps between the cars roughly the same while making the track safe for marshals to work.
And finally, let's quickly touch on the flags, the basic language of the track.
Q are absolutely critical. The double-waved yellow. That means there's a major hazard on or near the track. You have to slow down significantly and be prepared to stop. If you don't, the penalty is severe.
And the other one, the blue flag.
The blue flag is for a slower driver who is about to be lapped by a faster car. It means you have to let them pass immediately. If you ignore 3 blue flags, you get a time penalty. It's about keeping the race fair for the leaders.
We've covered the rules and the tech, but now we get to the human side. The physical demands on these drivers are just astonishing.
It's a level of stress that's beyond almost any other sport. Just to start, drivers burn around 1,000 calories per hour during a race.
1,000 calories an hour? That's like running a marathon continuously.
It is. And with the heat, they can lose up to 5% of their body weight in a single race just from sweat. That level of dehydration can cause a loss of concentration, which at these speeds is, incredibly dangerous.
And the defining challenge has to be the G-force. Can you put that into context for us?
Right. Think of a fighter pilot. A modern F1 car can generate up to 6.5 Gs in a corner. That's 6.5 times their body weight, pushing them sideways.
What does that actually feel like for the driver?
It means their head, which normally weighs maybe 6 or 7 kilograms with the helmet, suddenly feels like it weighs over 40 kilograms.
Yeah.
And they have to hold it up with just their neck muscles, lap after lap.
That's why they all have such thick necks.
That's exactly why. And under braking, they can hit 6 Gs. They have to push the brake pedal with about 150 kilograms. That's over 300 pounds of force.
And all of this is happening inside a cockpit that's unbelievably hot.
Oh, yeah. They're basically sealed inside a sauna next to a high-performance engine. Cockpit temperatures can get up to 60 degrees Celsius. That's 140 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's no wonder their heart rates are through the roof.
Their average heart rate can be over 170 beats per minute for the whole race, peaking close to 200. It's just a constant state of extreme physical stress.
And the FIA had to step in to protect them from themselves in a way.
They did. There's a minimum driver and seat weight of 82 kilograms now. It was brought in to stop the dangerous trend of drivers trying to starve themselves to be as light as possible to gain a performance advantage.
Okay, let's shift back to the machine. The current power unit, since 2014, has been this incredibly complex hybrid system.
Yeah, that was the start of the hybrid power unit era. We went from the old V8s to these 1.6-liter turbocharged V6 hybrid engines. And what makes them so complex is the energy recovery technology.
Can you break that down for us?
It's based around two main motor generator units. The MGUK for kinetic recovers energy when the driver brakes. It's like a normal hybrid car.
Okay.
But the MGUH for heat, the really clever bit, it's connected to the turbocharger and it recovers waste energy from the heat of the exhaust gases. It turns that heat into electricity.
That's incredible. So all that electrical boost gives them extra speed and efficiency?
Critical for lap time and for managing fuel. But even with all the efficiency, these cars are still unbelievably fast.
They can top 350 kilometers an hour or 220 miles per hour?
And the straight line speed record is even higher. Valtteri Bottas hit 378 kilometers an hour. That's nearly 235 miles per hour in qualifying back in 2016.
But carrying that speed through the corners was the big focus of the 2022 rule changes, which brings us back to aerodynamics and the idea of dirty air.
Right. Dirty air is the turbulent, chaotic airflow that comes off the back of a fast-moving car. This messy air has much lower pressure, so it drastically reduces the downforce for any car that's following closely.
Which made overtaking really, really difficult.
Exactly. So the 2022 overhaul was all about cleaning up that air. They did it by reintroducing ground effects, but in a very controlled way. They redesigned the wings, but the biggest change was creating downforce from underbody tunnels and diffusers.
So how does this new ground effect differ from that dangerous 1970s version we talked about?
The key is control. The old cars used those sliding skirts, which were unstable. The 2022 cars have standardized, fixed tunnels. They're designed to create a much tighter air wake behind the car, which reduces the negative impact on the car following behind.
Promoting closer racing.
That was the entire goal.
And the wheels changed too, didn't they? They got bigger.
Yep, they went from 13-inch wheels to larger 18-inch wheels with low-profile tires. The bigger wheel and the lower tire sidewall means the tire flexes less, which makes the whole aerodynamic platform more stable and predictable for the engineers.
And one last thing on the tech, the brakes.
Oh, the brakes are just insane. They use carbon disc brakes, which have to handle the heat of stopping from over 200 miles per hour again and again.
How hot do they get?
They can reach 1,000 degrees Celsius. To manage that heat, the discs are drilled with thousands of tiny ventilation holes. It's just extreme engineering.
And that technological arms race inevitably led to a financial one. Historically, the more you spend in F1, the faster you went.
That's the heart of the problem. Yeah. If you look back at 2019, Mercedes, who were the champions, had a budget of around $420 million.
And the teams at the back?
A team like Williams was operating on maybe $125 million. With that kind of gap, you could almost predict the results before the season even started.
So the sport had to do something, and the solution was revolutionary.
The solution was the cost cap. It was supposed to start at $175 million in 2021, but the pandemic changed things. It ended up settling at $135 million for the next few years. That is a massive spending cut for the big teams.
A huge cut. But there's criticism that the cap has some pretty big loopholes, right? It doesn't cover everything.
That's the key nuance. The cap excludes some huge costs. The big ones are driver salaries, the salaries of the 3 highest paid staff, and all marketing and travel costs.
So the arms race just shifts to different areas.
That's exactly what's happening. The cap has leveled the playing field for car development, but now the big money is being spent on the exempt areas. Teams are paying more than ever for the top drivers and the best engineers because their spending there is unlimited.
But even with those exclusions, the cap does seem to be working. It's forcing teams to be more efficient.
You can see the proof on track. Look at McLaren in 2023. They started the season near the back, and by the end of it, by maximizing their resources under the cap, they were fighting for podiums. It's a shift from just spending money to spending it wisely.
And looking ahead, F1 is also growing. We're getting new teams.
Yeah, the sport is looking to expand. Cadillac got approval to join as the 11th team, starting in 2026. And you're also seeing a lot of team rebrands, like Stake F1 and Visa Cash App RB, which shows how intense the sponsorship market is.
And beyond the competition, F1 is also tackling its environmental impact.
It has to. The biggest goal is to be carbon neutral by 2030. And what's interesting is where the emissions come from. A report found that 45% of the sport's emissions were from logistics, just flying everything around the world.
And the cars themselves.
The cars were only 0.7% of the total emissions.
That's a vital statistic. The problem isn't the cars, it's the global travel.
Right. And while they're working on logistics, they are also developing a 100% sustainable fuel, which they hope to use when the new engine rules come in around 2026.
Finally, let's talk about diversity and inclusion, which has become a big public focus for F1.
The hashtag Wear Races Own initiative started in 2020 to fight racism and inequality. And you saw a lot of very visible support on the grid. But some of the real change has been happening inside the teams. Mercedes, for example, started a big program to increase diversity in their hiring.
The most obvious gap has always been the lack of women on the grid.
Historically, only 5 women have ever even competed in a Grand Prix. The only one to score points was Leila Lombardi, who got half a point back in 1975.
So what's F1 doing about that now?
The big step was creating the F1 Academy in 2022. It's an all-female racing series designed to create a real pathway into higher levels of motorsport. And the visibility is working. Female viewership of F1 jumped from around 20% in 2019 to 40% by 2022.
And we're seeing more women in key roles inside the teams, not just in the cars.
Absolutely. Everyone knows Hannah Schmitz now, Red Bull's principal strategy engineer who's masterminded so many of their wins. And in 2025, Laura Miller will be the first full-time female race engineer at Haas. So change is happening in the garage and on the pit wall.
So we've taken a real deep dive today, starting with how that formula of roles has shaped this incredible sport. We looked at the history, from the mid-engine revolution to those dangerous early ground effects.
And we broke down the modern race weekend with its strategic safety cars and the VSC. We also highlighted the unbelievable demands on the drivers, the 6.5 Gs, the 140-degree cockpits.
And we talked about how the machines themselves, now these complex hybrids, are constrained by rules designed to get rid of dirty air and just promote better racing.
But the future is really being shaped by the economics. That $135 million cost cap is forcing teams to be smarter, not just richer. But those exclusions for drivers and top staff mean the arms race has just shifted its focus.
It has. If we tie all of this together, it leaves a big question for you, the listener, to think about next time you watch a race.
Given this new cost cap and the push for stability, will the pinnacle of motorsport truly become more about strategic genius and raw driver skill than it's been in decades? Or will huge spending just get redirected to the exempt areas, making the driver the single most expensive and most critical differentiator on the grid? Every decision and every bit of driver input matters more than ever.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're heading way up the Nile to Upper Egypt to explore one of the most iconic sites anywhere in the world, the temples of Abu Simbel.
It's an incredible place, and our mission today really is twofold. We want to delve into the original creation by Ramesses II back in the 13th century BC, just the sheer audacity of it.
Yeah, the scale is hard to comprehend.
Exactly. But then, fast forward 3,000 years, and there's the second monumental story, the international effort in the 1960s to save these very temples from being lost forever, an engineering feat almost as staggering as the first.
When you see images of Abu Simbel, especially that great temple facade, it just hits you.
Yeah.
This wasn't subtle.
No, not at all. It's pure power projection. You've got two massive temples carved straight out of the rock face, right on the edge of Nubia.
And this was during the 19th dynasty, you said, Ramesses II's time.
That's right. Construction started around 1264 BC and took about 20 years. And the location was key. Nubia was Egypt's gateway to gold and other resources. This was about stamping Egyptian presence, Egyptian might right there.
A giant "We are here" sign written in stone. So the Great Temple, dedicated to the main state gods Amunon, Ra-Harakti, Ta. But really, it's about Ramesses himself, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's Ramesses dedicating a temple to the gods and to the deified version of himself. He's basically putting himself on par with the gods.
And those statues outside make that point pretty clear.
Yeah, don't they just?
Right.
4 colossal seated figures of Ramesses. Each one is 20 meters tall. That's what, 66 feet?
66 feet. Just sitting there, staring out over the landscape. Imagine sailing up the Nile from Nubia and seeing that.
Exactly. It was meant to intimidate, to impress.
Yeah.
Pure propaganda in stone.
And there's a second, smaller temple, too.
Yes, the small temple, dedicated to his favorite wife, Queen Nefertari, and also to the goddess Hathor. It forms this unique pairing, political power, religious authority, and even a bit of royal family commemoration.
It sounds so permanent, so monumental. But like so many ancient wonders, they didn't stay in the spotlight forever, did they?
No, far from it. They eventually fell out of use, probably as power dynamics shifted. And the desert does what it does.
Sand. Lots of sand.
Tons of it. By the 6th century BC, so maybe 600 years after they were finished, the Great Temple was already significantly buried. A huge dune had piled up against it.
How much was visible?
Not much. Reports suggest the sand reached right up to the knees of those giant statues. You'd only see the very top part of the facade, the heads and shoulders poking out, basically lost to the world.
Wow. So for nearly 2 millennia, it's just hidden. That who finds it? How does it reappear?
Right. Jump forward to the early 19th century. The credit for the modern rediscovery goes to a Swiss explorer, Johann Ludwig Burckhardt.
Burckhardt. Okay.
In March 1813, he's traveling in the area, probably following rumors or ancient accounts. He spots the small temple, which was less buried, and crucially, the very top of the Great Temple's facade sticking out of the sand.
So he knew something big was there.
He knew something potentially massive was there. He documented it, but he couldn't actually get inside the main temple. The entrance was totally blocked by sand.
Okay, so the stage is set. Someone needs to dig it out.
And that someone was the rather famous Italian adventurer and proto-archaeologist Giovanni Belzoni.
Ah, Belzoni. He pops up everywhere in early Egyptology.
He does. He heard about Burckhardt's find, got some backing actually from the British consul Henry Salt, and arrived in June 1817 determined to get inside.
And it wasn't easy, I imagine.
Not at all. Picture this. June, July, in the Nubian desert. Intense heat. They spent 22 days relentlessly clearing sand, trying to find and unblock the original entrance. Just back-breaking work.
But they did it.
They did. On August 1st, 1817, they finally broke through. And the description of that moment is amazing.
What was it like?
Belzoni and his team described the air that rushed out as a hot and moist vapor, not unlike that of a Turkish bath. Think about that air sealed inside for maybe 2,000 years, hitting them with that thick, humid heat. Ugh. Incredible, a direct sensory link to the past. But the impact of this discovery goes way beyond just finding another temple, right? This had huge implications.
Oh, absolutely massive. This is where Abu Simbel plays a pivotal role in cracking the code of Egyptian hieroglyphs.
How so?
Well, soon after Belzoni got in, a French draftsman named Louis-Maurice Adolphe Linot de Belfons went in to sketch the reliefs and inscriptions.
Okay. Detailed drawings.
Very detailed. And crucially, he copied the royal names written inside oval shapes, the cartouches. He sent these drawings back to France to Jean-François Champollion.
Champollion, the man who deciphered hieroglyphs.
The very same. And apparently it was seeing the cartouche for Ramphis from Abu Simbel that sparked the big insight.
So it wasn't some grand Rosetta Stone moment in isolation. These drawings were key.
They were absolutely critical. Champollion had been working on it for years, but this specific evidence helped him realize in 1822 that hieroglyphs weren't just symbolic pictures. It was a complex system. Some signs were symbols, some represented sounds like letters. Phonetic. Wow. So Abu Simbel didn't just reveal itself. It helped reveal the voice of ancient Egypt.
Precisely. Those drawings were the key that unlocked millennia of history. It's quite something.
And even beyond the language, Abu Simbel became important for, well, visual records too, didn't it? Photography was just starting to become a thing.
Yeah, that's another interesting footnote. Maxime du Camp, a French writer and photographer, took some of the earliest photographs there in 1850.
First photos?
Among the very first photos of the site, yes. And the book he published later, Egypt, Nubia, Palestine, et Syrie, was actually the first French book ever printed with photographic illustrations. So Abu Simbel is tied into the history of photography too.
Amazing. Okay, let's go back inside the Great Temple. You mentioned the 4 huge statues outside, but one of them looks broken.
Yes, that's right. The second statue from the left as you face the temple, its head and upper torso are missing from the body. They lie on the ground in front of it.
What happened there?
An ancient earthquake, most likely. It caused that massive upper section to break off and fall. But what's really interesting is the decision made during the relocation project in the 1960s.
They didn't fix it.
No, they very deliberately chose not to restore it. They moved the fallen pieces along with the rest of the statue and reassembled them exactly as they were found broken.
Why?
It was a conscious choice, I think, to preserve the history of the monument, including the damage it had suffered over time. It acknowledges the passage of centuries, the forces of nature. It's a kind of archaeological honesty.
That's fascinating. So you go past these giant figures, including the broken one, and into the temple itself.
Yeah.
What's the first main space like?
You enter the great hypostyle hall. Hypostyle just means a roof supported by columns. And these are huge columns, shaped like pillars, actually Osiride pillars, figures of Ramesses as the god Osiris.
And the walls, what do they show?
They shout Ramesses' military achievements. The dominant theme is the Battle of Kadesh, fought against the Hittite Empire.
Ah, yes, the battle Ramesses claimed as a massive victory, even though historians now think it was more of a score draw.
Exactly. But on these walls, there's no ambiguity. You see Ramesses, larger than life, riding his chariots, firing arrows, leading the charge, smiting his enemies. It's pure royal propaganda, cementing his image as the invincible warrior pharaoh.
Okay, so military might in the hall, but the real magic, the thing people talk about most with Abu Simbel, is deeper inside, isn't it? The solar alignment.
Yes, this is truly astonishing. You go deeper and deeper into the temple through successive halls, all the way to the innermost room, the sanctuary. It's about 63 meters, maybe 200 feet from the entrance, carved into the mountain.
And it's all about the sun.
It's all about the sun. Twice a year, the entire axis of the temple was precisely calculated so that on 2 specific dates, around October 22nd and February 22nd, the first rays of the rising sun pierce through the entrance, travel the entire length of the temple.
63 meters.
And illuminate the statues sitting against the back wall of that final sanctuary.
Wow. Which statues are they?
There are 4 seated figures there. The sunlight hits 3 of them. Ra-Harakti, a sun god, fittingly, the deified Ramesses II himself, and Amun-Ra, another major state god.
So, light on the sun god, the king, and the king of the gods. Makes sense. But you said 4 statues. Who's the 4th?
The 4th figure is Ta.
Ka, god of craftsmen, creation, but also connected to the underworld, right?
Exactly. And here's the incredible part. The sunlight never touches the statue of Ta. It falls perfectly on the other 3, but leaves Ta always in shadow year after year, century after century.
Like it be accidental.
Absolutely not. It's deliberate, sophisticated, astronomical, and religious planning, keeping the god associated with darkness in the dark. It's mind-blowing, really. Amelia Edwards, the writer and traveler, was one of the first modern observers to really document this phenomenon back in 1874.
An ancient astronomical clock built inside a mountain. Just incredible. Now, near the Great Temple is the small temple for Nefertari. How does that compare? Is it just a smaller version?
Not quite. It's smaller, yes, but it has its own very unique features, dedicated to Hathor and Queen Nefertari. And the facade is remarkable in a different way.
How so?
Well, usually, in Egyptian art, the queen is depicted much smaller than the pharaoh, often only reaching his knee height. It shows the hierarchy.
Right, standard practice.
But on the facade of the small temple at Abu Simbel, you have standing statues of Ramesses flanking the entrance and standing statues of Nefertari also flanking the entrance. And they are virtually the same size. Both are just over 10 meters, about 33 feet tall.
Equal size. That's really unusual, isn't it?
Extremely unusual. It's a huge statement about the status and importance Ramesses gave to Nefertari, his great royal wife. It suggests a level of partnership, or at least esteem, that you rarely see represented so monumentally.
So we have these two incredible structures packed with meaning, art, astronomy. Then comes the 20th century and a massive threat.
A truly existential threat. The plan to build the Aswan High Dam further down the Nile. A necessary project for Egypt's development, for power generation and water control.
But with a huge side effect for Nubia's monuments.
A catastrophic one. The dam would create Lake Nasser, one of the world's largest artificial lakes. And the predicted water level behind the dam meant Abu Simbel would be completely submerged. Gone.
Not just submerged, but destroyed, right, because of the type of rock.
Exactly. The temples are carved from sandstone, which is porous, constant immersion under dozens of meters of water under pressure. It would saturate the rock, weaken it, and the structures would eventually just crumble and dissolve. It wasn't a matter of if, but when.
So the world faces losing this masterpiece. What happens next? There must have been some wild ideas floated.
Oh, definitely. This was the space age. Anything seemed possible. One early, quite dramatic proposal was to leave the temples where they were, but build a massive concrete dam around them, under the water of Lake Nasser.
Like a giant fish tank.
Sort of, with observation galleries for visitors. But the engineers realized the problem. Even with the dam, the water pressure from the surrounding lake would seep through the ground and up into the porous sandstone. The temples would still get waterlogged and eventually collapse. So that was out.
Okay, what else? I heard something about lifting them.
Yes, that was another seriously considered plan. Imagine this. Encasing the entire Great Temple, all 250,000 tons of it, in a giant concrete box, and then somehow lifting the whole thing vertically using enormous hydraulic jack.
Just lifting the whole mountain chunk.
Basically, yes. Push it straight up above the new water level. The estimated cost was huge, around $62 million back then, and the risks. Well, the risk of the whole thing cracking or collapsing during the lift was just deemed too high, and it would take too long. Lake Nasser was rising.
Mind-boggling concepts. So the plan they actually went with must have seemed almost as crazy at first.
It probably did. The winning proposal came from a consortium led by Swedish engineers, VBB. Their idea was, in essence, the most logical, but also incredibly complex. Carefully cut the temples into large blocks, move the blocks to higher ground, and then reassemble them exactly.
Like the world's biggest, most precious Lego set?
Kinda, yeah, but infinitely more delicate. This required a massive international effort spearheaded by UNESCO. They launched a campaign to raise the funds.
How much did it cost in the end?
The final cost was around $40 million, which is roughly $300 million today. A huge sum. About half was funded by Egypt, and the other half came from donations from nearly 50 countries around the world, a truly global rescue mission.
Okay, they have the money, they have the plan. What's the first step on the ground?
First, they had to protect the site from the rising Nile while they worked. So they built a massive temporary cofferdam, a watertight enclosure in front of the temples. It was huge, 82 feet high, just to hold the water back during the initial, most critical phase.
Then came the cutting. That sounds terrifying.
It must have been incredibly nerve-wracking. The goal was precision. They ended up cutting the two temples into 1,036 main blocks, some weighing up to 30 tons.
How do you cut 3,000-year-old sandstone that precisely without shattering it?
Very, very carefully. They brought in specialist stone cutters from Italy, Marmasti, who were used to working with delicate marble. They didn't use jackhammers or anything brutal like that.
Well, Ben.
Primarily hand saws, long manual saws. And before making a cut, they often injected the sandstone with synthetic resins like epoxy to strengthen it and prevent it from crumbling along the cut line.
Wow, hand saws. And how wide were the cuts supposed to be?
The target was incredibly fine, just 6.4 millimeters, about a quarter of an inch wide. Think about that. You're sawing through ancient rock, trying to keep the cut that thin to minimize damage and make reassembly seamless.
The level of skill involved.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Absolutely. Once a block was cut, it was carefully numbered, cataloged, lifted by crane, transported about 200 meters inland, and about 65 meters higher up the plateau.
So higher and further back from the original shoreline.
Exactly. Safe from the rising lake. Then came the reassembly, putting it all back together.
Did it work? Did it fit?
Remarkably well. The process was meticulous. The small temple was reassembled first, finished by the end of 1966. The Great Temple followed just about 6 weeks later. An incredible pace.
But just stacking the blocks wouldn't be enough, right? They needed support.
Right. They couldn't just leave the reassembled temples exposed. The original temples gained their stability from being carved into the mountain. So behind the reassembled facades and halls, the engineers built huge, hidden, reinforced concrete domes.
Domes, like internally.
Yes, massive dome structures that provide the structural support from behind and overhead, essentially taking the place of the original mountain rock.
And then they covered these domes up.
Completely. They piled hundreds of thousands of tons of rock and sand over the domes to recreate the original look of the hillside, the original setting. So from the outside, it looks like the temples are still carved into a natural cliff face.
That's brilliant, but the ultimate test must have been the solar alignment. Did that survive the move?
That was the nail-biting moment. They specifically checked it. On February 22nd, 1966, after the main structure was reassembled, but before the dome was fully covered, they watched. And the sunbeam came through right on schedule, traveled the 63 meters, and lit up Ra-Harakti, Ramesses, and Amun-Ra, leaving Ta in the shadow. They had done it. They had preserved the ancient magic.
That's just incredible. What an achievement.
It really was. The whole project was officially completed in 1968. It's considered one of the greatest feats of archaeological engineering ever. And it had a lasting legacy, too. This whole campaign directly led to the creation of the UNESCO World Heritage List, establishing a framework for protecting globally important sites.
So Abu Simbel is not just a monument. It's the reason we have World Heritage Sites.
In many ways, yes. It set the precedent for international cooperation in cultural preservation.
So reflecting on all this, we have these two almost unbelievable stories wrapped up in one place. Ramesses II's ancient vision of eternal power and godhood.
And the 20th century's determination to preserve that vision, using incredibly sophisticated, modern engineering, moving over 1,000 blocks piece by piece, keeping that solar alignment intact.
It shows what can be done, doesn't it? Both in ancient times and, well, relatively recently.
Absolutely. Human ingenuity tackling seemingly impossible challenges, millennia apart.
As a final thought for you, our listeners, consider this little detail, often overlooked. Back in 1893, years before the rescue, some British royal engineers were working to stabilize the cliff face above the Great Temple. And they found something.
What was it?
A small, protected grave niche. Inside were the remains of Major Benjamin Tidswell, an officer in the Royal Dragoons. He died of dysentery there in 1885, while serving with the British forces during the Nile expedition.
A British soldier buried right there.
Yes, his comrades buried him in that niche high up on the sacred cliff. During the 1960s relocation, the engineers carefully moved his grave, too, slightly aside from the main temple area, and gave it a proper granite marker. It's still there. So, amidst these colossal monuments built for eternity, dedicated to pharaohs and gods, you have this small, quiet reminder of another human presence, another layer of history. A Victorian soldier finding his final resting place on Ramesses' holy mountain. It just underscores, I think, how this place has drawn people in, demanded effort, and held on to its significance across more than 3,000 years. From pharaohs to soldiers to engineers, a constant human connection to this spot on the Nile. Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into the engineering magic that stops large language models, the engines behind all those chatbots, from getting creative with the truth.
It's really the essential scaffolding for any kind of trustworthy AI. I mean, if you've ever asked an LLM a question and it just confidently make up an answer.
That famous AI hallucination.
Exactly. You've hit on the core multi-billion-dollar problem we're tackling today.
Right. And the issue is it's almost philosophical. These LLMs are pattern machines. They're trained on these huge, but ultimately static data sets.
The model doesn't know anything. It's just predicting the next word based on probability, based on data that might be years out of date.
Or just doesn't include your company's internal files, for example.
Which brings us to our deep dive. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RJ. This technique, it just completely changes the game. It lets an LLM do a quick knowledge lookup.
A lookup before it answers?
Yes. It retrieves new external information from a knowledge base you provide before it generates a response.
So instead of the LLM just digging through its own vast but old memory,
Right.
our rig makes it grab a little cheat sheet that we provide. And only then does it use that specific data to build its answer.
It's a shortcut to being reliably well-informed, especially in, corporate settings where you need the latest policy or the most up-to-date numbers, and you don't have to retrain the whole model.
And what's interesting is this idea isn't brand new. It was first introduced in a research paper back in 2020.
It immediately showed a practical way forward, a way to blend the LLM's generative power with a super efficient document lookup. It moves us away from this idea that the model has to contain all knowledge.
To a model that's more of an expert reasoner powered by an external library.
Well, exactly.
So to really get why RAG is so necessary, we have to talk about the problem it solves. And it's not a minor bug. It's what people are calling the hallucination crisis.
And that crisis is rooted in what the AI is trying to do. It's optimizing for coherence, not truth.
Wants to sound convincing.
It wants to sound convincing, so it will always prefer to generate a confident-sounding answer rather than just saying, I don't know.
And the consequences for that have gotten, well, pretty severe. I'm thinking of that really stunning example with Google's Bard demo.
Oh, that was a brutal, very public stress test for the whole industry. It was supposed to show off how great Bard was.
And instead,
the LLM gave some wrong information about the James Webb Space Telescope.
it was a tiny error, right? It said the telescope took the very first pictures of an exoplanet, which it didn't. A fact-checkable mistake.
A tiny mistake with a colossal consequence. Reports said that one error contributed to a $100 billion drop in the company's stock value.
$100 billion.
That's not just a talking point. It's a warning flare. It proves that factual inaccuracy is now a material financial risk.
We've seen it everywhere. Lawyers citing fake cases, doctors getting bad medical advice. It just destroys trust.
But, and this is a really crucial nuance, RAG is designed to stop the model from making things up, but it doesn't solve all the problems, especially when it comes to context.
The context misinterpretation trap. This is the big aha moment for me.
Right, because we have an example where the RAG system worked perfectly. It found a factually correct source.
But the final answer was complete misinformation.
The AI generated the statement, the United States has had one Muslim president, Barack Hussein Obama. Totally false.
And when you trace it back,
Book with the rhetorical title, Barack Hussein Obama, America's first Muslim president.
with a question mark.
With a question mark.
Right.
The LLM saw the names, it saw the sentence structure, but it completely missed the rhetorical nature of the title. It saw a statement, not a question.
Wow. So you can lead the AI to the perfect source, the absolute truth, but if it misses irony or a rhetorical question,
It can still generate profound misinformation. RAG is a superb guardrail against invented facts, but it's not an immunity shield against misinterpreted facts.
okay, so we've established hallucinations are expensive and dangerous, which leads us perfectly into the mechanics of RAG. How does this elegant solution actually work?
When we talk about RAG's benefits, accuracy is what gets the headlines, but the efficiency might be the most compelling part.
Because retraining these huge models is just brutally expensive, computationally, financially.
And it takes forever. Imagine you're a hospital and you update compliance policies every quarter. You can't spend millions retraining your AI every 90 days.
It's just not sustainable.
And this is where RAG shines. When new information comes in, you don't touch the giant LLM at all. You just update its external knowledge base.
So you're shifting from this massive, slow retraining of the model.
To simple, fast data augmentation of the index. It's so much more agile. It basically democratizes access to this tech.
Okay, so let's walk through the process. It all starts with data preparation, right? Taking all our documents, PDFs, whatever.
Right. That data first has to be converted into a format for super fast semantic comparison. We call this embedding.
It turns text into numbers. A big list of numbers for every piece of text.
Exactly. And those numbers, the LLM embeddings, represent the meaning of the text, not just the words. So dog and canine will be numerically very close in that mathematical space.
And these embeddings get stored in a special kind of database.
A vector database. And it's optimized for this kind of semantic search, not old school keyword search. It looks for meaning.
So once the data is prepped and in the database, the user asks a question.
Yep. The user's query also gets turned into an embedding, into a vector. Then a document retriever compares that query vector to all the document vectors in the database.
And it finds the closest matches.
It finds the top few most relevant chunks of text. And this is the key that retrieved text is then fed into the LLM along with the user's original query.
That's the augmentation part.
Yes, through what we call prompt engineering. We're essentially stuffing the prompt with specific factual context. It tells the LLM, hey, for this question, prioritize this information over what you already know.
Prompt stuffing. I like that term. It's like giving the model a perfect little open book test.
And that leads to the final stage, the output. The LLM generates a fluent answer, but, and this is huge for trust, it can also include its sources.
Transparency. That's the big payoff. The user can see exactly which document snippets were used to create the answer.
It creates a crucial audit trail. A RAG response comes with live, verifiable citations. It turns the model from a confident guesser into a responsible citer.
So the mechanics are intricate, but the result is an AI that's cheaper, more current, and more trustworthy.
Yeah.
But it's not perfect.
Which brings us to the challenges RA still faces.
Right. If RA provides guardrails, what happens when the model still, swerves off the road?
We have to be realistic. RB is not a silver bullet.
No. Absolutely not. And the first limitation is that hallucination risk. It's reduced, but it's not zero. The LLM can still hallucinate around the source material.
How does that even happen? If you give it the perfect text, where does the error creep in? It's often in the final synthesis step. The model might cite the document correctly, but then it tries to be conversational and extrapolates a conclusion that isn't actually in the text.
So it's a failure of reasoning, not a failure of retrieval.
Exactly. And another big challenge is the model's self-assessment, or lack thereof. LLMs are really bad at knowing when they don't have enough information to answer.
You want it to just say, I don't know.
You needed to say, I don't know. A confident but incomplete answer can be way more dangerous than no answer at all. But the model is designed to generate text, so it will.
And then there's maybe the biggest operational headache, conflicting information.
This is the reality of any corporate knowledge base. You have old policies, new policies, different drafts.
And the RG system might retrieve both.
It might retrieve both. And the LLM, in its attempt to be helpful, doesn't pick one. It tries to merge them. It combines an old rule with a new exception and creates a misleading hybrid response.
That sounds like a nightmare to debug.
It is, which is why engineers are working on improving the pipeline at every stage. And a huge focus right now is on that very first step. Chunking.
That's just how you break up the source documents into pieces for the vector database, right?
Right. But how you do it matters immensely. If your chunk is too big, it's full of noise, too small, and you lose critical context.
So what are the strategies?
Well, the simplest is fixed length with overlap. You just chop the text into, say, 500-character pieces. It's fast, but it's dumb. It can cut a sentence right in half.
Not ideal.
Not at all. So a smarter way is syntax-based chunking. You use a linguistic library to break the text up by sentence or paragraph. It respects the grammar.
Better context, but more work up front.
A lot more. And the most advanced is file format-based chunking. This is where you respect the document's own structure. So for code, you keep a whole function together. For a PDF, you keep a table or an image caption as one unit.
Maximum fidelity, but also maximum complexity.
It's all trade-offs. The whole RAG pipeline is under this constant pressure to get smarter, to get more accurate, to get more trustworthy.
So to wrap up our deep dive, let's bring it back to the big picture. Retrieval augmented generation is clearly a foundational technique for using AI in the real world.
Absolutely. It bridges that huge gap between the static knowledge of a big model and the dynamic, specific facts we need. It hits the three big pain points: cost, accuracy, and transparency.
It makes AI cheaper, grounds it in facts, and lets us see its work with citations.
But even with all these amazing advances, vector databases, smart chunking, there's one final kind of fascinating reality.
Which is?
Sometimes the sophisticated semantic search just misses things.
And the solution to this super futuristic high-tech problem?
It's a throwback. It's hybrid search.
You're kidding.
Not at all. Engineers found that pure vector search is great for concepts, but it can miss specific keywords, a product code, a person's name, a specific date.
So to make sure they don't miss anything.
They combine the advanced vector search results with a traditional old-school keyword search.
So you run the smart semantic search to find the meaning, and at the same time, you run a basic keyword search to find the exact terms.
And you feed the combined results into the language model. It ensures you get the best of both worlds, the conceptual understanding and the precise, literal matches.
That's the perfect illustration of where we are with AI, isn't it?
Hmm.
The most cutting-edge techniques still rely on simple, established methods to make sure they're robust.
It's like double-checking your complex spreadsheet with a simple calculator, just to be sure. The next big challenge isn't building new search methods, but making that hybrid integration completely seamless.
It really is. We've gone from AIs that invent things to AIs that cite their sources. But the fact that we still need a simple keyword search as a safety net, it's something to think about. How often do we have to check the smart system with the old school methods? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.
Indeed. The journey continues.
Until next time.